Okay, guys. So I'm just going to just move that in case anyone wants to join. Run through the presentation. We'll keep it nice and brief. Obviously, it's Sunday morning, and I'm sure there are many better things you'd like to do with your time. But this presentation is all about fat loss. So we're not going to cover the best diet for X, Y, and Z. It's just literally about how you can maintain or you can achieve long-term fat loss. Obviously, fat loss is generally a phase of your life. It's not the you don't necessarily do it forever, but there are some really easy tips if you struggle to potentially lose long-term weight, or you struggle to stay on the right path, or you just tend to maybe make the same mistakes time and time again. So we'll run through all that in this seminar. And really, it's just about educating you guys. And I'm sure you already know a lot of it. If you don't, then it's good. You learn something new, and maybe it helped to reaffirm some ideas that potentially you have forgotten about. Because I think in general, most people do know what they need to do for fat loss. There's a few tweaks here and there, but most of you would know what you need to do for fat loss. So this just kind of reaffirm them. And if you are looking to start something on your nutrition wise, then it would be a good place to start after this. So we'll get cracking. Yeah, pretty simple. Like I said, I did understand. We're probably the ones that overcomplicate it. And the truth be told, having done this job now for nearly 12 years, most people don't stick at a fat loss diet for as long as they potentially should. They get a little bit kind of frustrated quickly, and they want results within 2 weeks and all this sort of stuff. So we overcomplicate fat loss. The key is to stick to anything you do it for a long period of time. Really, if you are looking to lose weight a sustainable way, you actually want to look at a long-term approach. So you want to be looking at really probably 8 to 12 weeks as a minimum, and even that's quite short. A lot of people want to lose weight as soon as they can, but to be honest with you, you want to go for a longer term approach, as it's easier to do and it's much easier to maintain, which is crucial. You don't want to lose weight and then suddenly have to think about putting it all back on as soon as you stop whatever you've been doing. So we're going to hopefully identify how you can change the way you do this and how you can stick to something long term. That's the goals really of this presentation. So it's quite, let's start at the top. So what actually is fat? Really, as you can see there, it's an imbalance, energy imbalance between calories consumed and calories expended. Now that is quite a basic term. Everyone knows that. There was a couple of factors that might influence this, but for 99% of cases, generally speaking, this is the number one reason. So you will be consuming more calories than you're either burning and using on a day-to-day basis for a long period of time. This must be said, this isn't necessarily over a 24-hour period, but for a long period of time to accumulate fat. The World Health Organization, they put this statement here as the fundamental cause of obesity and being overweight. There is some potential hormonal aspects to it as well, maybe beyond the scope of this presentation. I'll talk a little bit about these, but to be honest with you, in our experience, this is the number one reason why people gain weight in the long run and struggle to lose weight in the long run. And it is quite a simple thing to understand, and I think everyone is aware of this, but it is probably also the hardest thing to do long term. So simply put, we either eat too much, or we are too sedentary, or we're both. That's pretty much it in terms of how we get overweight and how we potentially become obese as well. So this doesn't matter what you eat, whether it's protein, carbohydrates, fats. Really, your calorie consumption is greater than what you burn on a regular basis. So on that notion, potentially you can eat less and exercise more, but that isn't always the healthiest thing to do. And I'll explain in this presentation how we can avoid getting in that mindset, because it can create some quite negative loops, and it can create potentially some obsessive compulsive disorders we have with food. So we want to just create a balance where you can enjoy your life, you can eat things that you enjoy to eat, and you can exercise a decent amount without being obsessive on either of those two things. So I think that's also an important thing to say as well. So yeah, like I said, an energy imbalance, as previously explained, too many calories, not enough moving, not enough burning off, basically. And we have to speak about, like I said before, there is potentially an hormonal imbalance. Now, a lot of people might mention hormones and thyroids and all this as the other and all that sort of thing, but I'm just going to touch on this. So the World Health Organization put it down as number one, like I said, energy imbalance. Now, there is a hormonal imbalance, and this theory, because it is a theory, is based on the fact that if we eat lots of refined carbohydrates, so grains, sugars, and low fiber starches, so basically processed foods, over time, this can cause a high secretion of insulin, which a high secretion of insulin is basically the precursor for fat storage. So what this happens is insulin is secreted in response to a type of carbohydrate called glucose. So every carbohydrate you eat is broken down into glucose. And when a lot of glucose is rising in the blood, which happens after you've eaten a carbohydrate-rich meal, basically your pancreas secretes more insulin. And the reason why we secrete insulin is its role is to keep the blood glucose level from getting dangerously high in your body. Okay, so it's a good thing that we do that, of course. And insulin tells muscle, organs, and even fat cells to take up the glucose and use it for fuel. Pretty simple concept to understand. What this also does is this also tells fat cells to store fat. So that's including fat from the meal for later use, which makes sense based on the fact that our physiology, fight for flight and survival mode when we were roaming the plains looking for whatever we could get, that makes sense that we store our food to use at a later date. The problem is now we're a lot less sedentary than we were back then, but our bodies hadn't changed too drastically in the millions of years or whatever, thousands of years we've been on this planet. So as long as your insulin levels remain high, fat cells generally retain fat, and the other cells preferentially burn glucose and not fat for energy. So they'll be burning the carbohydrates in your bloodstream quickly, whilst the rest of your body gets stored as fat. So that's a hormonal imbalance, and that is a theory. And if you are, again, it's beyond my scope of expertise, but if you have any experience of diabetes or you know your diabetes, they'll know more about this. So I think we can all agree that we know not to eat too many processed foods. And if we do, it potentially comes into this theory. So sugars, carbohydrates, grains, low fiber starches. I would add on this, guys, is don't avoid carbohydrates. Don't take, okay, Jesus Christ, I can't eat carbs. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think that's a healthy long-term approach to weight loss or fat loss or just eating generally. But if you are someone who likes to eat lots of wheat, so I can speak to clients and friends of mine who will start their day with toast or have pasta at lunch. They might have biscuits and cake in between, for example, and they have couscous in the evening meal. That is a high amount of wheat consumption. Now, again, lots of grains. I would definitely avoid having such maybe high amount of grains, but that is really common because wheat is pretty much found in everything that we buy. So if you buy it in a box, I can guarantee it's probably made out of wheat. So that's definitely something to think about. But if you get number 1 point nailed, i.e. not eating an excessive amount of calories and not burning enough over time, then you probably get 99% of your results. But it's important to understand the quality of food that we do eat has an impact on how we store our energy. So grains, definitely. Sugars, obvious one. You want to reduce the amount of sugars that you have in your diet. And low fiber starches are what I found in processed food, because unfortunately these companies want us to consume a decent amount of these foods and enjoy these foods. So why put something in there like fiber that fills us up? And fiber is generally found in most natural things that we can buy. So again, I would avoid those certain things. Maybe you can get like whole wheat and high fiber versions of grains, but I think if any of you guys suffer with any IBS or any potential digestive issues, I would definitely reduce the amount of grains in your diet, just kind of full stop, and maybe do what you can do is you can take a grain out of your diet, and then for 2 weeks or a week period, something like that, and then you can reintroduce it and just note how your body reacts. That's always a good way to actually see if your body likes it, whether do you have energy after eating, do you feel full, bloated, do you have digestive problems and that sort of stuff. That's a really easy way. If you're not sure on certain things like dairy, like wheat, the usual stuff, then that's a really easy way to do that as well. Right, digressing a little bit, but there we go. So what the whole purpose of this presentation is, what do you have to do to lose body fat? Okay, so we speak about fat, not weight, because weight is only one metric that we use. So the scales, guys, don't always get addicted to the scales. That's a really simple tip. So we want to actually lose body fat. And you can measure how you lose body fat by taking photos, by clothes size. So 5 pounds of fat looks very different to 5 pounds of muscle, for example, and that's going to be spread out across your whole body. Generally, the volume is much higher in fat than it is to muscle. So sometimes the scale weight, if you guys have been at SPC for a while, or you've even just joined, sometimes the scale weight might not even change, but you could be 1 to 2 dress sizes lower. And that's just because your body has retained muscle through the resistance training that you guys all do at SPC. That's why we kind of harp on about it, and that's why it's so important, because we can retain muscle, and muscle has a very high use of calories, and you basically can reduce the amount of fat. So scales is just one area that you can measure your progress. Photos and clothes size are a brilliant way of doing it as well. So what do you need to do to lose fat? So before you do anything, you need to establish how many calories you are currently consuming. I can't emphasize this point enough. I don't think anyone really, including myself, has a grasp on how many calories that they are currently consuming. And this does include oils you use to cook in and alcohol that you consume. Those two are always left out of anyone who does actually take a period of time to track their calories. Now, we'll cut to the chase. Tracking your calories can be a ball ache. I'm not going to lie. You have to, I'll show you later on in this presentation, you download a calorie tracker. You basically implement everything you eat that day, and that includes the measurements of the food you eat as well. So sometimes they ask for pre-cooked food or post-cooked food, but you put that into a calorie tracker and you understand how many calories you are consuming on a day-to-day basis, because you'll be amazed really at all the things that slide in there. And you have to do this completely with 100% honesty, otherwise there's 0 points. So if you are cooking with olive oil, how much olive oil are you using? Are you having a biscuit with your tea? How many biscuits are you having? How many sugars in your tea are you having? How much alcohol are you drinking on a regular basis? You know, because all these things people do tend to forget when I chat to people who are trying to lose weight. They remember the main meals that they eat. You know, they are eating really healthy, etc., which I'm sure they have, but they haven't said what oil they've used, what sauce did they put on their food, how much alcohol they've drunk in a week. I mean, I'm pretty sure I looked the other day, a bottle of red wine is nearly 1,000 calories. So that's not to say you need to stop drinking, and it's not to say you need to stop using oils on your food, but you need to track everything that you put into your mouth, which is really important. Okay, so first things first, you need to download a calorie tracker, implement your data. And when you do download these calorie trackers, and I'll show you one of these later, you are asked to say how much movement you do every day, whether you're sedentary or not. I would generally, guys, always put down that you're sedentary, because most people overshoot where they're at. So if you say on a calorie tracker that you are sedentary, it will shoot you a calorie target based on being sedentary. You don't want to put that you are, oh, I move a lot. I mean, based on these kind of algorithms, someone who is high amount of movement has like a manual labor job, they go to gym 3-4 times a week, that sort of thing. It's very high end. So if you are anyone who is sat down quite a bit, an office worker, or you work from home, yes, you might get out and do 10,000 steps a day, but I still would generally go on the lower side, because it would just help you to understand all your calories and that sort of thing. If someone types, can you guys still hear me? Oh, that's all right. You can hear me, nice. So first things first, you download a calorie tracker. Okay, I'll put that on there in a minute, how you do that. But everyone that has an Android or an iPhone, really first thing you should do is that. So find out how many calories you need to eat to be in a slight calorie deficit. So going back to slide 1, to lose weight, predominantly you need to just eat or consume less calories than you burn on a day-to-day basis. Now, it doesn't mean that you overshoot like 1,000 calories less. That's crazy. You'll feel like absolute crap. But if you say, well, eating 2,000 calories, you would start with maybe a 200 calorie deficit. And the great thing about these trackers is that they will do this for you. So you can put in a weight target, again, you can say your activity levels, your current weight, height, etc., and it will shoot out how many calories you need to aim for a day. But before you do that, just track for 1 to 2 weeks what you actually eat, because also it will start to reveal potential routines you have. So maybe when you're highly stressed, do you have certain foods? You'll see a pattern to how you eat, because I think nutrition goes beyond just what we put in our mouth. So a lot of people react upon how their day's going. I mean, we've all heard the phrase, haven't we? Oh, I couldn't wait to get home and have a glass of wine, really stressful day. So you're obviously linking consumption of alcohol and relaxation. So it's maybe breaking these habits that we formed for long term, which, that's again another conversation, maybe another presentation, but habits are extremely important. Okay, so I would track your calories, guys. So you establish a baseline, and then honestly be 100% truthful with this, otherwise it's basically pointless. They can take their time, they can be a bit tedious, these trackers, but it is something that I recommend you do as well. Right, next slide. So I'll send this presentation to you guys, but here's what I've seen on the internet. I've used some of these myself. These are trackers you can download. So there's one called Lose It. So people recommend it's the best for tracking calories and fitness. MyFitnessPal, I think everyone has used. So these are apps that you just download on the App Store or on the, I don't know, is it Google one if you have an Android. They're generally free, or if they do cost something, it's less than £2 and it's probably worth it. But I'll send you all these. But these are what I recommend to track your calories. So after this presentation, if you're serious about doing this, download one of these, start today or tomorrow, and literally track everything you put in. But when you do track, don't change your diet for the first week. Just eat as you normally would, because you, again, like I said, you want to see the habits that you actually do eat, and you want to be honest with yourself before you start moving on the process and actually setting yourself a calorie target and a weight target to eat each day and that sort of thing. Okay, look. So once you've established your first week's baseline, so you track to your calories on one of those apps, you can move on to setting a weight goal that will show you, like I said before, how many calories you need to consume per day to remain in a calorie deficit. So it is important, guys. Calorie deficit is, I'd say, 99% of cases, going back to the first slide, and you've obviously got the hormonal thing I spoke about, calorie deficit is the most important thing. So a little calorie deficit each day over a long period of time would result in fat loss. I've not seen it not result in fat loss. So that is what we're trying to get out of this presentation, is how to maintain a calorie deficit for a long period of time. Again, the slide summarized everything we've really said, really, but I would track your baseline calories for at least 1 to 2 weeks before you start setting yourself a goal on the app and then diving straight in, because like I said at the start, you want to understand why you're eating a certain way, and is there triggers to why you eat that way as well. So just track your calories normally and the food you eat, so you can look back and just say, yeah, okay, I can understand now why I'm choosing these types of foods. When you do track your calories, just be mindful of making sure you implement the right portion sizes. So that's going to have a big impact, obviously, on what the tracker sees. So make sure you will have to probably measure out your food during this point. But once you've done this for a week, generally speaking, we tend to eat a lot of the same things. So you won't necessarily have to do this every time, because you'll know, for example, a handful of rice is roughly X amount of weight. But for the first week, it's going to be a bit tedious, but it is something that you're going to have to do as kind of truthful and precise as you can. Okay, so make sure you focus on those, guys, and make sure you put in the right measurements. If the serving sizes on food, just check them, because more often than not, we have like 3-4 times the serving sizes on a packet. So just do check them. It's normally one biscuit isn't one serving size and all that sort of stuff as well. Okay. All right, moving on. So once you have set up your tracker, here's a few tips now. What we have found has worked on the SPC nutrition camp when we were doing that. So Tom, I'm going to show you in the next slide an example from the nutrition camp. These are really easy things to take home, but this is what we found work. And I think in our nutrition camp, I think we were close to about nearly 80-90 kilos lost between everyone that joined it. And a lot of it was sustainable weight loss. A lot of them now are still at the weight that they were, And it did take a bit longer because they had a bit more of a slow, gradual approach. But these are what we found to be the best things that you guys can do in terms of when you are moving on. So this stage that we're talking about now is once you've tracked your food for 2 weeks on a tracker, now you're ready to make the change and you've been given a calorie goal by your tracker. And now it's time for you to select the foods you're going to incorporate in your diet. And going back to the first slide, when we talk about eating too many sugars, grains, carbohydrates, here's some tips that we would recommend to replace foods like that to create a long-term kind of fat loss plan ready. First one, we spoke about it before, everyone's heard about it, but protein is extremely important. It's extremely important for building muscle. And again, like I said, obviously you want to retain muscle mass when you are trying to lose weight because it's more metabolic. So you burn more calories with the more muscle you have. So it's an easy win. You can sit on your ass and burn more calories, right? And it's just good keeping you full. So everyone's experienced it when they've eaten a barbecue. You feel pretty full afterwards when you're eating particularly lean meat and that sort of thing. So protein at every meal, and it blows people's minds, really does blow people's mind that we do include breakfast to eat protein. So breakfast examples would be an obvious one, eggs, right? Eggs for breakfast. But in our nutrition camp, people have eaten fish for breakfast. And it's just changing our perception of food, because normally when you say this, people go, oh, I could never do that. Well, it's more of a psychological thing. You just have to try what works for you. But starting your day with a breakfast full of protein, so you're looking at probably 30 to 40 grams of protein for a breakfast, which would be bang on. So in real terms, a chicken breast would probably be about 25 to 35 grams of protein based on the size of chicken breast. You'll be amazed at actually how full you feel for longer for the rest of the day, and potentially how much energy you have. Not just a slab of chicken, obviously you can incorporate some carbohydrates with that as well. But protein as you start your day has a massive impact on actually how full you feel throughout the day. So avoid things like cereals. You know, we're not children anymore, guys. You probably don't need to eat massive amounts of carbohydrates, because you're going to consume carbohydrates first thing, and then you're going to sit down behind your computer or go to the office. I guarantee by 10 o'clock, you will feel tired, you will feel hungry. And then that's when you're more likely to choose something that's quick, easy, satisfying, like biscuits, you know, like that sort of thing. So avoid carbohydrate heavy rich breakfasts, plain toast. If you're going to have toast, use like a whole wheat option, and again mix it with some protein. So that is the number one thing: protein every single time you eat food. Really, okay, that's got to be in the forefront of your mind if you're looking to lose weight. And if you do struggle with changing your routine, you just need to work at it, and you need to keep going and not try it once and think, no, it's not for me. It needs to be a consistent approach. So you need to give this time, couple of weeks, just find what works for you. Eggs is always a good place to start. I definitely recommend that. Get used to maybe buy a good omelette recipe book, I reckon, if you like eggs. Moving on to the second point. If you can keep your food plan to main meals only, just by doing that, we find that people lose weight. So snacking is a concept that we've developed really. You know, we kind of think now that we can't go 4 or 5 hours between eating food. But if you can start to develop breakfast, lunch, and dinner, generally find in our nutrition camp, people feel more focused. They feel less likely to binge, because when you have a snack between meals, you kind of kickstart that digestive process, and your body often goes, oh, that tastes quite nice, can I have some more of that? And snacking, if people took nothing from this presentation and just took snacking out of their diet, generally they would start to lose weight, because snacks are always high calorie, generally sugar dense treats that can just add on the pounds again over a long period of time. So let's go back to the old school method of having our main meals. That would be 3 or 4 meals a day, depending on the type of person and how many calories they need to consume. But that is another tip that we found worked really well with the nutrition camp. So take snacking out. You're not going to die if you haven't eaten in 4 hours. And if you find that your meals are satisfying you, where they have protein in, carbohydrates and fats, and they're a decent amount of calories, that you break up your calorie goal. Let's say you're on 2,000 calories and you're eating sort of like 600 roughly calories each meal, maybe even 700 calories each meal. you will find yourself feeling fuller. You'll find yourself having less dips of energy, particularly in the afternoon, and you're not got that reliance upon, oh, I need that perk me up about 2-3 o'clock, because again, it's normally a psychological habit that we just developed from either working from home or working in the office or something along those lines. So take snacking out straight away. That'd be pretty good at help you from consuming high calorie snacks. And these do often go unlogged on a calorie tracker as well. People tend to forget about these a lot when they are logging their food. So point on that, if you're doing tracking your calories the first 2 weeks, as soon as you eat something, just stick it straight in. Don't wait till the end of the day on your tracker, because I guarantee you'll forget, particularly the smaller things like snacks. Again, point one, but right at first slide, we spoke about this. I won't go on about too much, but limit your grains and instead focus on your fiber-rich carbohydrates, sweet potatoes, whole grain rice, that sort of thing, because generally we find it improves people's gut health. You can keep them in there, of course you can, but if you find you're someone who gets bloated after eating a certain type of carbohydrate, you might want to take it out for a couple of weeks, reintroduce it, and just note, does the bloated come back? Because being bloated, having digestive issues after eating food isn't a normal thing, guys. I think we've accepted it a little bit for some reason now. That, oh, I feel a bit bloated after eating that. It's not normal. It's normally a first sign of our body saying, hang about, whatever you've done, I don't quite like that. So normally grains and dairy can be two that you might just want to look at reducing in the long run, not cutting out completely, but maybe just focus on that. The fourth point, putting carbohydrates around your workouts, is a really good one. That when you have set up your calorie tracker and it's giving you a calorie goal, putting carbohydrates around your workouts, particularly post-workout, can just help you replenish the energy that you obviously burn at SPC, because you guys do work hard, and it can make you sleep better if eating carbohydrates later in the day. Now, there was a thing a few years ago where people said avoid carbs late at night. It's actually a load of tush. Don't listen to that advice, because if you think about it, if you have a carbohydrate rich meal in the middle of the day, what happens 2 hours after eating that is you generally feel quite tired, sleepy, they get that lull in the afternoon. Well, by eating carbohydrates before you go to bed, so with your evening meal, so for example, having, rice, fish and whatever, yes, you might feel sleepy 2 hours later, but that's the perfect time to feel sleepy, because we're going to be going to bed. Seems obvious, right? So there's more evidence now that's suggesting eating carbohydrates, particularly post-workout, is a good thing because of the energy that you've burned. Again, glucose, which carbohydrate, as we spoke about, is broken down to, is our number one form of energy. So after you train at SPC or you've done a run or something, you do want to eat some carbohydrates. That makes sense. You don't necessarily need to eat buckets before you train, but definitely need to consume some, not as soon as you leave the gym and, run and get a load of wine gums or something like that. That's not really what we're saying, but probably within a couple of hours, you want to consume carbohydrates as part of your next meal after workouts. And you'll find that your recovery from training also improves. And if you can keep carbohydrates towards the end of the day, like I said, those guys of you that struggle with sleep, you might find that you sleep more, sleep better rather. So definitely something to note on that. Green leafy vegetables, in our nutrition camp, we always say you can have unlimited amount. There's hardly any calories in a bag of lettuce, so you can just load that bad boy up. It's going to do wonders for your skin. You've got lots of fiber in, lots of water, keeps you feeling full. So we try and promote as much vegetable consumption as we can, and that does include every meal, even breakfast. So go back to the first point, yes, even breakfast. So maybe some water-based vegetables, peppers are quite good. People have them in omelets and that sort of thing. But if you can get a habit of, with your 3 main meals a day, including vegetables in there, you might find things like your skin health improves. And of course, Christ, I ain't going to talk about how good vegetables are for you, but you haven't really got to track, particularly green leafy vegetables on your trackers, because there's hardly any calories. The vegetables that contain large amount of calories are the more starchy ones. So your carrots, your potatoes, and again, doesn't mean you need to avoid them, but it is definitely worth noting that those are more of the high calorie options. So we say as much unlimited green leafy vegetables as you can get your mitts around, for sure. And yeah, the last one, I spoke about this again a bit at the start, is that if I'm honest, if you are slamming alcohol, hello Dennis, sorry, Dennis has just come in. If you're slamming alcohol on a regular basis, you're trying to lose weight, you are going to make things so hard for yourself. And it's not because I'm a party pooper or anything like that, but it's just that alcohol is so easy to consume and it is so high calorie. There is obviously lower calorie options out there now, which are good. But if you are on a long term and you know you're maybe unhappy with the amount of fat you're carrying, you're going to have to be mindful, guys, of the amount of alcohol you consume. So that is an easy way to reduce straight away the calorie consumption. Like I said, I think one bottle of red is nearly 1,000 calories. So if you can reduce low calorie options, you can reduce the amount of time you drink during a week and all that sort of thing, it's just going to have profound impacts on your health, but particularly on your weight loss goals as well. So the next slide is, we just got 3 slides to go, as I don't want to keep you too long. So this was taken from our nutrition camp. Now this is from a male. And as you can see at the bottom, he ate 1,969 calories. I can't remember exactly his stats, so don't copy this diet word for word, but this is just an example of what we were doing on a nutrition camp. Okay, so 1,969 calories might seem like quite a lot for you. And again, these calorie trackers will show you how many calories you need to eat for your height and weight. That's why they're important. That's why they're good. He was eating predominantly, most of his diet, 179 grams was in the protein. He had a decent amount of fat in there. Now, guys, don't avoid fat. Fat is obviously more calorie dense, but at the same time, it's good for your skin health, and from the right sources can be very beneficial to your overall health as well. And he had a slightly lower carbohydrate requirement because he was sedentary. This guy worked generally in an office. He wasn't moving that much, so his carbohydrate consumption didn't need to be crazy high, but at the same time, he didn't want to completely reduce the amount of carbohydrates he has, because sometimes when you do that, when you reintroduce them, there can be a few weird things that happen. You can gain weight quite easily. So you don't want to reduce carbohydrates completely. And that's for ladies as well. They always tend to reduce those ones mad low, but don't do that. So he was on the go in the mornings, kids straight out to the office. So he was just having a protein shake mixed with peanut butter. That was his jam in the morning. Making sure he drank enough water as well. Again, water is an important one, obviously, but make sure you're drinking enough, 2 to 3 liters a day. So he was up. You need to know your schedule when you're starting to look at so you've got your calorie tracker now and you're starting to plan your diet and all that sort of thing. So when you put in 250 grams of chicken breast, for example, into your calorie tracker, it will tell you how many calories that is. But he knew his schedule in the morning. He's not got time to sit down, have a decent meal with family, you know, a slow start today. He was out the door. So we got him on a protein powder and a peanut butter. So basically protein and fat start, no carbohydrates again. So he wasn't going to get that big lull in the afternoon. Probably his first main meal, I guess, let's say lunchtime. Decent amount of protein there with the chicken breast, fat from the avocado, and the mixed salad and vegetables. Like we said to you start, we don't really track those as long as they're non-starchy. Okay, so as much as you want. And he had some berries as well. His third meal was the first time really he's had a decent amount of carbohydrates with the basmati rice, salmon, usual stuff. And he did incorporate one snack in his day. So 20 grams of mixed nuts, a kiwi, and some dark chocolate. So that was 1,900 calories, just below 2,000. So probably, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see when I speak to you all in person, what you think, whether that's less or more food than you can imagine for that amount. That's where the calorie trackers are becoming really crucial, because it will tell you how many calories you need to eat based on the goals of weight you want to lose. And from that, you can incorporate whatever foods you like. But this is just a good example, and I'll record this presentation, send it all to you guys. But that's a good example of what he was eating. So we went down the route of introducing healthier options for other reasons than just losing weight. So in skin health, cardiovascular health, all the stuff we know about, trying to reduce the amount of processed food this guy was eating, because it was just easy for him to go down the corridor into the canteen and fill himself up with some rubbish. So I'll send this one to you, but that's just an example. It'll be interesting to see what you guys think of whether that's a lot of food or not. Last 2 slides. Now, I just want to do a little section on ladies, because things differ a little bit for you guys. Now, I will probably do a presentation soon on ladies nutrition, because there is some slight things that you shouldn't look at yourselves as eating the same potentially as your husbands, as your boyfriends, as people you know, as your males in your life, basically, because you are different. You have a different hormonal setup, a different hormonal profile for reasons of childbirth and all that sort of stuff. So there is a couple of tips that I will say to you now that can help. So generally, ladies, you require more protein than men. And this is due to the reduced testosterone in your bodies. Okay, so you obviously got estrogen, more estrogen than men, and less testosterone. So you need more protein than men, which particularly post-workout. So you need at least, if you're a younger lady listening to this, so that's premenopausal, you need at least 30 grams post-workout. So you can get yourself, and again, we've got a link in our website to supplements, and I can send it around later. A supplement website where you buy yourself some whey protein. So normally it's 2 scoops of whey protein, it'd be about 30 grams. So when you finish your session at SPC, the first thing you consume in your mouth, probably within a 30-minute window, would be a protein shake. So 30 grams of protein for a younger lady. And if you are postmenopausal, because you've even got less estrogen, for that reason, you want about 40 grams post-workout. So this can help with your recovery. And going back to the first slide, protein is an extremely important macronutrient for weight loss. It keeps you feeling fuller for longer. But ladies tend to eat less protein than men. So you need to start eating more protein than the males in your life generally, but particularly around post-workout. So premenopausal, 30 grams, postmenopausal, 40 grams post-workout within 30 minutes is my recommendation, okay? And another tip, if you guys are listening to this and you train fasted, first thing, you might have some of our 6:30 a.m. AMers online today, you really want to avoid training fasted. Now, I know years ago, people said that you lose more weight and it's basically a load of bollocks. You don't. So I'm going to tell you why now. Men can get great results training fasted. And this is why it's so annoying for you ladies, because again, your hormonal profile is different to us. But women don't do well training fasted, okay, for a number of reasons. What it does is it has a massive increased cortisol release in ladies compared to men. And a big release of cortisol, you probably heard the stress hormone cortisol, leads to a storage of body fat in the long run. So we probably all know someone, maybe even ourselves, who goes out for the early morning runs and eats well and does every tick box thing, generally speaking, 80% of the time, but they don't look how they want to look. And I guarantee one of the reasons will be they're training in a fasted state, particularly if they're female and postmenopausal as well, or even premenopausal. So avoid training fasted. That doesn't mean you need to consume an absolute crazy amount of food. You know, if you're going to be training at 6:30 in the morning, then, you know, you're obviously not going to get up and eat absolute bucket loads. So even something simple as half a banana and a black coffee, that would just kickstart your digestive system. That would mean you're not going to be training in a fasted state. And it means you're less likely to store body fat from this huge increase in cortisol, okay? So avoid training in a fasted state, guys and girls, sorry, if that's something you do already. And you can speak to Michelle or me about this. But if you are training in a fasted state, half a banana, some caffeine, even maybe a slice of toast and honey, if you're going to be training within the next 30, 40 minutes, or something like that would be good, because it's quick energy. And like I said, just kickstarts that digestive process. So I will do a seminar on ladies nutrition, but that is 2 things to factor in, okay? And last slide, just some practical implications. So let's say you've downloaded your tracker, you've done the 2-week baseline just to see if there's any habits that you do with your eating. And then now you're ready to start. You set your calorie goal, you set your more sedentary, and it's kicked out a calorie target. Now, what are the practical implications of actually maintaining this, right? Because that's the thing that most people struggle with the most, is actually maintaining their weight loss. So there's a number of key things: self-monitoring, extrinsic motivation, goal setting, going through challenges you're going to have, and understanding weight fluctuation. So this last slide, I've touched on this nice and briefly for you, but basically self-monitoring. So how are you going to self-monitor your weight loss? Is that body weight? Is that using food scales to count your calories? So making sure that you're, like I said at the start, making sure that you are having the right amount of food. You're not just guessing the portion sizes. Counting your calories, macro counting, and portion control. Those are things that you can look to self-monitor all the time going forward. So there will be a time where you don't want to track your food and calorie counter. And that's why it's starting now to get these habits in, that you know roughly, okay, 50 grams of rice is X amount of carbohydrates. I know that in my head. I know that a palm-sized bit of meat is generally X amount of protein. So you can develop and you can come away from sticking to always monitoring on your phone. Because I probably haven't said about this, but after doing this fat loss diet, tracking your calories, then you want to learn how to go away from that and develop good habits and healthy habits. So self-monitoring is important. So in the long run, how are you going to self-monitor your progress when you're not on a calorie counter? That's something to think about. And often these methods do allow for flexible freedoms when you diet. So just choose the one that you feel works for you, whether that's your body weight, like I said, whether you're using food scales, whether you're doing portion control, you're doing time restrictions. Ladies, I would tend to avoid intermittent fasting, like I said, because intermittent fasting before you train isn't necessarily going to be the best thing that you can do. Okay, so I would avoid that. Guys, you can do that if you want, if it helps. Extrinsic motivation. So even something simple as being vain. Vanity is not a bad thing when it comes to wanting to improve your health and your nutrition. So maybe have they can be useful, so you can have a picture of what you want. If there's a body shape out there that you want to achieve, have a picture, have a motivation, keep it somewhere just so you can remind yourself what you're working towards. That's a really good one. Or even on the other side of the coin, you can have a picture of maybe yourself when you didn't like how you looked as a motivation. It depends on of course, how you work. Some people like negative, some people like positive. But just have a photo or something that gives you some motivation. Or if you've got a date, you've got a wedding coming up, those are always easy ones, aren't they? Have a motivation, have a goal that keeps you on the straight and narrow when things do get hard, because they do, it's not always plain sailing trying to lose body fat. It can get really tough. So extreme motivation, photos always good, and just be vain always helps with that, right? Moving on with that, similarly, goal setting. So and these can be a continuous evaluation of your goals. You haven't got to say, for example, I want to lose a stone. You can reassess your goal halfway through. Or you might be feeling really good having lost half a stone. People might be complimenting how well you're looking. So reassess your goal, set a goal at the start, but don't be afraid to reevaluate your goal when it comes to losing weight as well. These also can be as simple as planning meals or weekly training sessions that all add to habit forming. So making sure you are attending your SPC men, SPC women twice a week. You are making your PT sessions for your training. You're ticking those boxes. You're going out for your walks. When you're not training, you're maybe doing an extra session at home a week. Or, you are planning food on a Sunday. You're getting it all cooked. You're getting it all done. And it's just saving you time in the long run. So goal setting is important. So what goals are you going to do alongside tracking your food and sticking to your calorie targets? What other goals are going to be habit forming in the long run? I think pre-planning food is always a good one. I'm rubbish with that myself, but I've got Michelle, so unfortunately for you guys, you haven't got her. So kind of alongside that, get a good social network. Tell as many people as you can who care about you that you are looking to lose X amount of weight, because the more people you can bring into your goals, the easier it may be. We've all been in that situation when people are encouraging you to eat and drink a certain way. And sometimes it can make yourself feel uncomfortable if you're the only person who knows about your goals. So tell as many people as you can, I'm planning to lose this much weight. I'm planning to lose this. Bring the whole family in if it's a family endeavor. Just let as many people know, because it's much easier when you share something like this rather than keeping it to yourself. So that's really good. Whoever that person may be. Also, on that other side of the coin, kind of any negative support can derail dramatically. So we're always going to have that person in our lives who's like, come on, eat that. What are you doing? You train at the gym this morning, you can have this, that, and the other. And you just have to be strong and just say to them, no, I'm doing this for me. These things are habits that I had before, where I would have that extra bit of cake, I would have this, that, and the other. And actually, I want to avoid these because in the long run, it's making me unhappy with how I feel. Bring the bigger picture in, because ultimately, a lot of people might feel unhappy about how they feel and all that sort of stuff. Oh, someone's popped up in the chat. No worries, Lou. So yeah, just be honest with people. That's why we're doing this, is because you might be unhappy with things, and make sure everyone knows about it. Enduring challenges. You're not going to have it all your own way during this fat loss phase. There's going to be times that are hard. Dealing with stress, particularly dealing with time, access, work excuses, all those sort of things. And those of you that can navigate these things daily or weekly, these challenges, without giving in to cravings, always keep weight off in the long run. We find on a nutrition camp, those that can basically wade through the bullshit and just keep on the straight and narrow as much as possible. Yes, there's going to be occasions when you have a night out and you meet friends, and that's absolutely fine. You should do that. But one night doesn't make or break you, but don't make one event turn into a week-long event, into a 2-week event, into a month event. That's what I would say with that sort of thing. So there's going to be challenges, and it goes back into your goal setting. Tell as many people who care about you about what you're trying to set out to do, because they will buy in, they will help you. You'd be amazed that maybe you might inspire them as well when it comes to those certain things. In terms of emotional eating and the times of stress, that's where planning your meals in advance comes in massively handy, because the tick box, it's all done. There's no last minute, oh, I need to grab some food, cook some food. Oh, I'll just get a takeaway instead. I've had a rubbish day, all that sort of thing. So planning your food is really important when it comes to enduring challenges, I think. And if you are someone that travels for work, if you're out of the office for a day, it can really, really help as well. So that's a good one to do. And just last but least, just understand weight fluctuations. Guys, your body weight fluctuates every single day. You don't gain fat in 24 hours. No one's ever done that. I think 1 pound of fat is about 3,500 calories. So understand your weight fluctuations. For ladies in particular, times of your cycle has a massive impact on how much you weigh. What you ate the night before, for everyone else as well, has a massive impact on what you weigh the next morning. Have you got salt in your diet? Have you drunk a lot of water? Obvious things, but people sometimes get really downhearted when they do step on the weight scales. They might be 1 to 2 pounds heavier, but you can fluctuate by 1 to 2% each day. And that's why when you are going to be, if you're going to be going by weight as your measurement to how well you're doing on these types of diets, is that make sure that you weigh yourself under the same conditions every single day. So, if you are normally first thing in the morning, like if you get up, you go to the toilet, you haven't consumed any water, any food, that's always a great time to do it every single day, because you're going to get consistent showing of where your progress is at. Don't do it like one time in the morning, one time mid-afternoon, because like I said, all the things I mentioned a minute ago, there's massive changes to how your weight fluctuates each day. So every single day, same time, and it kind of creates a less bad, if that makes sense, a less bad relationship with the scales as well. Because you can get, it's like you step on the scales, it's 1 2 pound heavier, you can proper get annoyed, and it can often think, oh, what's the point? So every single day, first thing in the morning is always a good time to do it, and that can help avoid food binges as well if you feel a little bit negative or when you step on the scales. And if you are stressed about scales as well, it just helps you generally overcome that fear of, oh my God, it's the scales now as well. So same time every day, obvious one, but amazing how many people don't do it. I think, guys, that's pretty much it. So essentially, have a goal, stick to it each day, week, month, all year, get social support, and have an idea of what it may look like for you at the end result. And the only last thing with that is you just got to be tenacious. So it's a really simple process. Count your calories after this for the next couple of weeks. Don't start a diet now. Don't put in a goal straight away. Just count your calories to look at the habits that you might have in your life and why you have these habits. Do that for a couple of weeks. Then start with a new calorie goal. I'll send you all this presentation around the next 24 hours. I'll put it as a link into our SPC resources section on our website, so you can look back at it and you can look at the things. I'll send you the links for, it's just here actually, the links for calorie tracker. You've got obviously an example of our diet plan there as well. But it's simple. Count your calories for 2 weeks. Once you've done that, look at the habits you're forming, then set a new calorie goal and start to focus on eating foods that keep you fuller for longer. So protein every single meal, like we spoke about. Maybe reducing your carbohydrate intake a little bit, placing them around workouts. Ladies, if you're training at 6:30 in the morning or you're doing a fasted workouts, avoid that. Get some food in you. If you are a lady as well, eat more protein, ladies. Postmenopausal women, eat more protein. It's really, really important because of the lack of estrogen. And I'll do a whole seminar on this as well. And just maintain as much tenacity as you can towards it, because there is going to be bumps in the road. And like I said, things aren't always going to be plain sailing. To tell as many people as you can about tell as many people as you can about your goal, and don't be downhearted if 1 or 2 days don't go to plan, and factor in that you are going to be going out with your friends. That's absolutely fine, but look at it over a long period of time and not in these 24-hour or 7-day segments. You need to look at over a minimum probably of a 3-month period is how I would go about it. And you'll be amazed that we get from my nutrition camp as well. You'll be amazed actually just by adopting potentially a healthy eating plan, how well you feel in comparison to maybe what you were eating before. Sorry, went on for a bit longer. Obviously started a little bit later, but I think that's it, guys. If you've got any questions, what I'll do is I'll send my email around. I'll get Michelle to send my email. It's probably easiest to email me directly because we'll be on here for 20 minutes answering questions and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, if you've got anything, just email me, guys, or text me if you've got my number, and I'll put this up on the resource section of our website in the next 24 hours. But thanks for joining us Sunday. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you all from next week. Cheers, guys.